What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. This is CLOPIXEL Gamers and I appreciate you tuning in. Today we're actually getting into round one of the Handheld Showdown. Today's round is going over fit, finish, and ergonomics. There are 9 segments in this round and each segment is going to earn each handheld 1 point. The one that tallies up the most points will depend on whether you're first, second, third, or fourth in this category, and you'll get additional points based on where they rank. The purpose of this showdown is to create very detailed and segment unbiased videos on how the handhelds stack up against each other and where you might want to spend your money, or if you're looking for specific things, how to pick the console that best fits your needs and your personality. I explain all the details of the showdown in this video. So if you want to know more about that after you watch this video, go to this video so you see where the other rounds are going to be and what they're going to be talking about. But without further ado, let's stop talking and get straight into Ergonomics Fit and Finish. Okay, so the first segment in this round is going to talk about peripheral location. Let's get into it. Okay, so for the peripheral location, we're talking about how to access every port, such as here on the SF200. So I'm going to go over each one individually and then we'll conclude which one gets the point for this category. Okay, so 4th place goes to the FC3000, and the reason being that this one gets 4th place is because of the several locations spread out on the peripherals. First of all, in order to charge my device or hook up the controller, I have to flip it to the bottom. Also, the TV out is at the bottom. Here we have the speaker at the bottom. Now, the power switch is right here at the top, along with the volume control. But say that I wanted to, with this device, access the cartridge port, the battery, or I want to access the SD card. I have to literally open the back of the device and turn it off. Now I have access to the ports. If I want to access the SD card, here is a location right here. Let me see if I can get it in the camera to focus. Okay, so right here is the SD card location, and that's where I will pop it out. Here's the battery, and also here is the cartridge slot for the cartridges for the system. So in this case scenario, I have to do a lot to access each part of the system. Now, there may be some pros to this, as in to keep everything protected, but in my personal opinion, this is why this particular device is weakest in this category of peripheral location. Okay, next up, I will consider it in 3rd place, which is the RG35X, and the reason being is because I constantly have to rotate the system to access each port. For example, to charge my system and access the audio jack, I gotta flip it to the bottom. Big ups to having 2 SD card slots here. Only problem is with this location, I have to flip it to the left, also accessing my reset and power button. And also here, it's good that you can put your main operating system here, put your extra ROMs here. But like I said, we're already at 2 locations to access everything. Now we gotta flip it again, number 3, to access our HDMI port, and flip it yet once again to access your volume control. So essentially, you're literally accessing every side of the console to access all your peripherals. So it beats it by a slight edge to the FC3000, but also another problem with this is access to your battery hatch. So you have to literally unscrew the whole back to access this. Although that's a separate category, in this category of peripheral location, RG35X gets 3rd place. Okay, in the place of number 2, I would say is the Miyoo Mini Plus. Reason being, one advantage they have 3 peripheral ports on one bottom. You have your SD card, your volume out. You also have your charge port here. Nothing on the right hand side, which means you have less to think about when you're flipping it this way. Only a power button at the top, and on the left hand side you have your volume rocker. One other advantage, which we'll get into the accessibility category, is being able to open this hatch without the tool and just change your battery as you need. But overall, I would consider the Miyoo Mini Plus in second place. So it's no secret what's coming up next is the SF2000 is the #1 player for peripheral location. Only have to look in one location. I flip it to the bottom and everything's easy to access. I've got my volume, my TV audio jack out. I've also got my TF slot here for my SD card, my Type-C charge port, and my on and off button. What this means is I do not have to really think about any other location to reach the peripheral ports, and that is excellent, especially to keep things simple and for the common end user. On the top here we have our left and right bumpers, and on the back you have what would be considered the 18650 battery port hatch. Also, if you leave it unscrewed, you can just flip it up with the latch just like the Miyoo Mini. But we're going to get on that in the accessibility before. So for this category, the SF2000 wins the peripheral location. The next segment in this round is all about button travel. Let's check it out. So the next category is travel. And the reason why I have to show you this angle is because you want to see how much travel it takes to actually press the button. The quicker and more smooth this action is, the more accurate you can be, especially with games like first-person shooter, or which will require a fast action. So how comfortable is this travel? How well does the button travel up and down? And how long does it take to reach its activation point? Okay? So that's this category here. Now we're going to start with the system that I think is the weakest in this category, and that is the FC3000. Now notice here, this has the shallowest shelf of travel, but it's not the weakest because the buttons don't feel good. They actually feel very well. But here's the problem. In this situation here, you actually have the case that rises up a little bit before the activation point. And as you can see, let me see if I can get my finger, the button actually becomes flush with the actual case itself. Now flipping over to the D-pad, you feel it even more. You feel like that your finger is becoming almost one with the surface of the system, and you kind of lose your direction, or you feel in that direction. The resistance is great, but as you can see, let's look at the travel real quick here. Boom. Boom. See if you can see that. Boom. So what's happening here on the FC3000 is you're losing, your press feels good, but until you touch the surface of the case, and you're not all the way there yet. So this has the shallowest shelf when it comes to pressing the button, and also the rate of travel. So I'm going to turn it this way so you can actually see the D-pad again. So what's going on here? Okay, the travel is good, but also there's no movement shifting up, down, left, and right, so it's good here. But because of the raising of the case feels like it should be a little bit back this way, so that way I feel more of the button. So this gets the weakest position, which is 4th place in this category. Okay, on the opposite end, the SF2000 has the longest travel. So it feels comfortable. It actually, the buttons, especially with the smooth round over, feels very positive, but there is a little bit of rocking here. So if I could show you here and demonstrate, there is some rocking. So I'm kind of moving left and right, and you can see the wiggle. One thing you don't want to do when you're losing positive traction on your button is to have that bit of rock from left and right, if you could see it. Now, also, when you press, it feels good, guys. It's not weak in that regard. And also, another thing I like about the buttons here, the start select button are raised above here, so you get more of a positive press. I also like the button location, but when we're talking about that up and down movement, this has the most travel, but it still feels good. Now over in the D-pad, on the other hand, this is a slight problem. Let me see if I can get in focus here. Now notice the movement. You will not see this in the FC3000. You will not see this in the Miyoo Mini, and you will not see this in the RG35X. Notice how I can kind of mush and move the D-pad around. Now this gets into fit and finish, but okay. So here you can see has a bit of a different shelf compared to the FC3000. So let's look and see what happens when we press here. Very positive, much better than the FC3000, SF200. A little mushy, but it's not as snappy, but the top feels a lot better. The bottom kind of falls off, but the top feels like what the rest of the direction should feel. So how this feels should be how the rest feels. So the SF2000 will get third place in this category. Next up, I feel as if the RG35X also is going to get second place in this point. And I love the smoothness of the buttons, the same smoothness I feel with the SF2000. The only difference is these buttons are a lot smaller and bunched together closer. The arrangement is better on the SF2000, but here it's a little tighter, but it's tactile. The buttons feel great. It's got that same up and down vertical movement with a little snap to it, and I really love that. It's got a little snap to it as you press down, as you can see here. Now, over here, what I do not like, and if I can get it on camera, I'll get it. The start and select buttons are a little bit more raised than the A and B and feel a little more mishy. So, in my opinion, I don't really like that. I want the start select buttons to get out of my way. And the reason why I want these to get out of my way is because you rarely push these, okay? Same thing with the menu button. It just reminds me of a big pimple sticking out, okay? So, with that being said, this is very mushy, okay? It's not a snap like you can hear the audible snap here. But here, you kind of get a more mushy feel and it's sticking out. So, I really don't prefer that. Now, let's go ahead and get into the D-pad here. It doesn't really fight you, but it has enough resistance that you can feel what direction you're going in. But you really do have to press a lot more to get that action going. This could slow you down. Now, this D-pad, let me see if I can get it a little closer and tell me what you think in the comment section. I think that just by looking at this particular D-pad is higher than both the FC3000 and the SF2000. So the D-pad feels okay. Some people say they prefer this D-pad. It's a little more firm, but based off of the raised and long travel of the menu button and the start buttons, and the longer travel is a slower response. So I'm going to give the RG35X second place. Alright, so right away I'm going to go ahead and give the Miyoo Mini first place, and no bias to it. A couple of things I got to explain, and I'll put them side by side and explain, comparing the two, why this two in the Miyoo Mini goes a little higher. First observation I notice is that the D-pad is actually wider here. This D-pad has ends to it that's a little skinnier. On the Miyoo Mini, you have a triangle, you have an arrow here that's inconsequential to design. But notice the menu and start button location is closer together, even though this system is bigger. Now, notice how the menu button, the start select button, get out of your way on the Miyoo Mini. Now, also in another way that these buttons get out of your way, this button is, like I said, like a pimple sticking out, and when you slide in your finger, bam, bam, it runs into it. Notice that. I'm not even exaggerating that. Look at my finger. See, that is a bump that you run into when you're using the system. On the other hand, let's look close at the Miyoo Mini. One thing you'll notice about the Miyoo Mini, there is an awesome little recession right here. Let me see if I can get it in focus into the camera. Okay, Notice here that you have a recessed shelf. Now, this is so smooth, I don't even notice that the menu button is there. And let's try it again. Now, same thing from last time. There is no nothing getting in my way as far as that menu button. It's not pressed often until I exit the game or trying to access settings, so it gets out of my way. Now, here on the start select button, there's just enough there. There's a good, nice little click. It doesn't resist my finger too well, yet it still has that positive snap. Good job on the Miyoo Mini for that. Now, I really love the D-pad in this regard. So let's focus on the D-pad on the Miyoo Mini, okay? So here, one thing you'll notice, it melts right in your hand. So there is little to no resistance once you hit that button. It literally rocks to wherever you're going. It doesn't fight you. So some people like that better. Some people like the snap of the RG35X. Let me know in the comment section what you think. It has enough positive snapback to bring me home, but it's not fighting me. So one, this is good for fatigue, okay? So if you're playing the game for a long time, there's less energy it takes to go here, and you're already at that left, right, up or down direction you're trying to get at. So there's less travel to get where you're going, and that's a positive. Now, as far as the buttons, you have that same smoothness with the RG35X, but the round over is much better. So and I'll show this again so you can see what I'm talking about. Notice the buttons are bigger on the RG35X and rounder. When I say rounder, I'm talking rounder this way, rounder that way. Now here on the Miyoo Mini, they're more shallow, okay? So it's rounded but still shallow, still recessed in the case. So this is much more comfortable. The buttons are a bit more spread out. Here on the RG35X, notice you got all this real estate and room, but they decided to bunch all these buttons together, and I just really think that they should have spread them out more. So travel goes to the Miyoo Mini Plus. In this segment, we're going to talk about accessibility. The SF2000 gets 4th place for this category for accessibility. And the reason being is because, yes, I can charge and also access my controller port here. I can get my TV out here. I can turn it to the left or reach over here to turn the console on and off in the volume. Problem we get into is if I ever have to change the SD card out, not going to be often changing the SD out. And you can already kind of tell I have to break this open to kind of get to whatever else I want to get to. So, see how I have to break this open to get to whatever else I want to get to. So not only do I have to take the back off, but I have to remove the battery to reach the SD card. Now, I'm not talking about the advantages. It's a whole other category. I think it's a good thing to have this lithium battery and also the option to put AAA batteries, which is excellent. But not only does the cover have to be off, and I can't even play it at this state or access it. If I want to put the cartridge in, I have to also remove this back. So in that regard, accessibility is the worst on the FC3000. All right, the RG35 is back, and we are in 3rd place for the RG35X. And the reason being is it has great locations. I think it could have utilized the bottom more here and maybe put the power button or possibly the HDMI at the bottom. Maybe it's better at the top. But I have 4 separate locations where I have to access whatever I want. Also, guys, what do you notice here? Cost saving measure is there is no battery hatch. So if this thing ever overheated, overcharged, I cannot access the battery. And also, let me zoom in a bit so you can see if I can get it in the camera. Well, the camera's not showing it, but here, these are actually the hex bits. So it's not a common tool like a Phillips head. So in order for me to get to the battery, I literally have to take off this whole back to access the battery. So this is why the RG35X gets a 3 for accessibility. Now what I really love about the SF2000 is they keep it very simple, and I can just access whatever that I want from one location, and that's the bottom. Now what I also really like is if you flip it to the back, you can literally almost have the ease of accessibility as the Miyoo Mini Plus to change this 18650 battery out. The only downside is here. I know this screw is here to keep everything secure, to make sure the hatch doesn't open, but you could literally take this screw out and just use the regular click, the ledge here that snaps to hold the battery. But that's where this system does lose some points, because you do have to take the screw off to access the battery. So I would have ranked these two the same as the Miyoo Mini, but I had to take away points for the screw. So I need a screwdriver to unscrew this to get to the battery. Although this is much better than the RG35X, I need a special tool to get into it. Now, speaking of which, this is better because I don't need a screw or a special tool to get to the battery, but I do have to remove the entire back off to get to this. So that's why, to me, the accessibility on the FC3000 is the weakest, and I'm giving the SF2000 second place in this category. Okay, so now we come into the Miyoo Mini once again, and this system will get number 1 in this category because I can literally access every part of the console that I need to use without really having any special tools. Also, I can change the battery on this without any special tools. I just use my finger and lift the bottom hatch, and I literally can just take the battery out and unhook it and do a battery swap if I need to. I love the raised buttons here, so that makes it a lot easier. And overall, I would say Miyoo Mini was thinking about the end user when it comes to serviceability and accessibility. So in this category, Miyoo Mini gets number 1. In this segment, we're going to talk about portability. Okay, so the next category is going to be portability. Now, you could sub this for a pants pocket or utility pocket on your pants. Me, I'm using my t-shirt, and I use this 8-bit DO controller to demonstrate that's very portable, very comfortable. I'm not really hurt carrying this thing around. So let's go ahead and see how portable each one of the systems are in my pocket. Okay, I'm gonna start with what I consider the least portable, and the reason being it is the widest, the biggest, and the bulkiest. And notice how it's kind of stretching out my shirt. Now, this category is all about, these are called handhelds, these are called portables, and right now it's really bulging my pocket, as you can see, and it's not necessarily the most portable. All right, you can already tell how this might pretty much go. So we're going with our third place for the RG35X, and as you can tell, it's a bit wide, but it hides itself on the top, so kudos on the height. But as far as the width, as you can see, I had to really push it in, and I got to really slide it from under to get it out. So it's a tight fit. Love the RG35X, and it is portable, but you cannot get this in your smaller pocket that's on your jeans, and it's kind of a push to get it in your pocket, but this is much smaller than our old Game Boy, so it's still much more portable than those. But in this case, the RG35X will get third place for portability. Now let's see if the Miyoo Mini, based off dimensions, is any easier to put in the pocket. Now it is easier to slide in, but by a small margin. So it still kind of pushes, but it's much smoother. And I would attribute that to some of the finishes, and that's in the category that's coming up soon. But literally, the Miyoo Mini slides in much smoother. Now, let me go ahead and look. Just want to take a comparison and look at the two since these are so close. Yes, so one of these is much slimmer, but the overall slimness, when I look at it, it's slightly thinner. The Miyoo Mini is slightly thinner, although in here it returns and goes slim. This one appears to be a little thinner and feels a little thinner. So it also is shorter, and this probably will fit better in pockets, but RG35X Miyoo Mini is a little slimmer, but in this case, the Miyoo Mini gets second place because it's cutesy size, it's portable, it's a little shorty, guys. But the only thing with it is that it does have that width in my pocket that kind of clinches it. As you can see, it's holding itself, and there it's in. So Miyoo Mini, second place. Lightweight. Now in this category, you may argue me up and down, but this is the #1 for portability, meaning that it's a slim guy. I just drop it. There it is in my pocket. I've carried this in my pocket, front, back pocket, and it feels so comfortable. Guys, in the comments, if you had this system, let me know, because in my opinion, this is portable, lightweight. Now, one of the heaviest ones, I would say, let's see here. Surprisingly, the RG35X is much heavier than this, and also much heavier than the bigger, bulkier SF2000. So with that being said, it feels comfortable. It's light. It's like I'm not even carrying anything, really. It's like I'm not carrying anything, and you forget it's there. So to me, this makes it #1 in portability. So these are portables, guys. They're handheld portables. So you want to keep in mind that the more comfortable it is to carry, guys, you got to keep in mind, the more comfortable it is to carry, the more likely you're going to take it with you as a portable. So the FC3000 gets #1 for portability. This segment, we're talking about ergonomics. Let's get into it. Now this by far is going to be one of the most important categories in this video, which is the ergonomics. How the overall feel in the hand as you play the game, okay? So I'm gonna have to give #4 to the FC3000, only because it's literally a bar here with your triggers. They're recessed, and I want to see if I can actually show you that. Here there is a recession right there that kind of feels like the whole ridge of this design. Now I like that design, how it carries this ridge all the way around. But these are your triggers, guys, and they're very small, and you kind of feel I want to say like a ledge when you're pressing it in. I don't know, people who own this console will know what I'm talking about. It's not out of the system, it's more in. And this is why this won the portability category, because you don't feel any triggers. Nothing snags you really. So it's really in there. But as far as holding it, it's a perfect size. It's lightweight. It doesn't wear you out. But compared to the rest of these, this is the least ergonomic. It's basically a chocolate bar, guys. This thing is basically a bar, and it's not the most ergonomic. So this obviously gets #4. Let's put that there. It'll be a tie between second and third place for these two guys, because you got the same bar thing going on here, but in this case you got more of a vertical situation going on here. Now when I first pick up the RG35X, I like the extra size on it. I like the snappiness of the triggers. I like how the placement is, but I think what I'm noticing now, I've got bigger hands, and I don't know if you can see it, I don't like this where my hands get in the way of each other, okay? So placement, it feels more scrunched. I don't know if I can explain it this way. I feel like the trigger and where your action buttons are, and the trigger and where your D-pad are like closer in proximity to each other. That's the best way to describe it. And if it was balanced, I feel like okay, if I two-fingered it, see, there we go. That's exactly what I'm talking about. If I two-fingered the system, I feel like I would drop it, and I would drop it. Basically, I can't really hold it. Now, let's go back and try to two-finger, easily, 2 fingers. Okay, and I'm still in the game. I literally can two-finger this, and it's not rocking forward and backward. So that's a disadvantage. I know the triggers have to be up, but they're dependent on your lower finger support. I haven't decided whether it's second or first yet. Let's get into here. You also can't two-finger this thing, and you're still dependent on your lower fingers. Otherwise, there's like a rocking situation going on here. One thing I noticed right away, though, the placement is more underneath. So if I could demonstrate that, here's your triggers, your finger creates a shelf, and you're gripping it this way. With the RG35X, more of the same, but it's feeling more fatigued here. I don't know why that extra stuff gets in your way, but this actually, in a way, is more comfortable. I don't know why that is. Even though there's less to grip, these two fingers, in some way, it makes it more comfortable than this. I can't explain it, but it just seems like less gets in your way. So I have to give RG35X third place. With the Miyoo Mini, like I said before, the built-in raised triggers, really there's less purchase on the Miyoo Mini Plus, but for some reason it feels more comfortable. I can't explain why. I have bigger hands, but I don't have that finger scrunching thing like this going on. I literally feel comfortable holding it this way. Now my 3-finger hold, and then the other fingers are just kind of like there. But my hands don't feel fatigued. The button placement is, I would say, not scrunched together. And let's see if we can prove that out. Yes. So it looks the same, but it's not. Notice that the outside buttons are wider and the inside buttons are skinnier, and this space is skinnier. Here it's wider and the button sizes are the same, yet these buttons are raised. So that proves kind of like your hands, if this middle placement is closer together, that means your hands will be closer. So good, kudos to Miyoo Mini. You get second place. So we're looking at fourth, third, second, and obviously the SF2000 gets first place in ergos. You got the nice curves in the back that fit your hands comfortably, and it like literally just puts in your hand. Now you also have the option, and this is the only system out of 1, 2, 3 that has your analog stick. So if you don't want D-pad, you have your analog stick. This is so comfortable, guys. You really just have to be like slightly on the edge to click them of your bumpers, and it's just comfortable, guys. You can't beat the SF2000. Not this one, not this one, and not this one. The SF2000 wins in ergonomics, okay? It just feels right in your hand. I can't explain it, but the SF2000 has ergos in this category. It's designed to give you those curves so that way you get more purchase. Your hands are not in the way of each other. The buttons feel great. So in this category, ergos goes to the SF2000. This segment, we're talking about feel. Let's check it out. Okay, now for this category, I wanted to do the segment live with all of them on the table. Now, as far as feel, we're going to talk about the actual finish. And one thing I will have to say is the Miyoo Mini and the FC3000 have a smooth finish, while the RG35X and the SF2000 have a textured finish. And I'll see if I can get that on camera closely so you could see that textured finish. Now, as far as finishes and how they feel, when you're thinking about texture, you might want to feel a little more grip. So that's preferential. Otherwise, you would like a more smoother finish depending on who you are and what you like to feel. So if I would say right away which one feels the best, I'm going to say that the Family Pocket is going to get the 4th place. And the reason being, the plastic doesn't feel like the best quality, although lightweightness is great in some case scenarios. It feels more like a bar. So when we're talking about feel, remember the Game Boy Micro. Cool, very portable, not really ergonomic, not really comfortable in the hands. Now, when we think about the Game Boy Advance, the first one, the sidebar one, not the flip one, very comfortable compared to this bar design. So I'm not a fan of how the bar design feels, but this orientation makes it much better. I like the side orientation because my hands are spread and I can really do what I need to do. But as far as the feel, this is the least comfortable system. So this gets 4th place. When we're talking about comfortability and feel, I love the texture. I love how the triggers kind of like just form fit your hand on the RG35X. I like the clickiness of the triggers. One thing I didn't like about, and I know people already know about this, comparing the Miyoo Mini and the RG35X, is the triggers are all on the same level. So when you're actually in action and feeling, reaching for something, you don't know what you got. On the other hand, the Miyoo Mini raised the R2 L2 versus the R1 L1, and that is very important when trying to find what triggers what. So when it comes down to these two, it's going to be about the way they feel. And to be honest, when we're talking about these two as far as finish and feel, and we're feeling them, these, believe it or not, guys, the SF200 and the RG35X have the same finish. Now, if you don't believe me and you own both of these consoles, pull them out and you'll notice that when you're feeling these, it's the exact same plastic, guys. Even when I'm tapping it, it's the same. It's the same plastic. But as far as how they feel, and when I'm gripping these, what they feel like, I'm gonna have to say the RG35X is more tactile, while this is more form-fitting in your hand. So, but as far as feel, these are on the same level. So these actually tie. So this would be considered interchangeably 3rd or 4th place. You choose which one's going in 3rd or 4th place. Now, as far as feel, when you feel this screen versus this screen, they have relatively the same smoothness, but when we're talking about how it actually feels, it's like it just, if you've ever seen a pool with a live edge and there's no, or edgeless pool, and you see the water roll over that, almost like a waterfall, that's kind of what the Miyoo Mini is getting to. So in the bezels, notice in the bezels, and this is the best way I can demonstrate it, notice in the bezels you have much smaller here. Here you can noticeably see it, but here it literally blends into the whole system. Speaking of which, this has a sharper edge all the way around. Now, when we're talking about looks, that looks pretty cool. But when we're talking about feel, that's where it loses points. Here, the Miyoo just kind of melts in your hand, in a sense. Although there's a little missing at the bottom, it just seems like your fingers want to take up and make a shelf. Your, I would say, ring finger wants to make a shelf for the Miyoo, and it's not really missed as far as the extra purchase. It feels just as comfortable or even more comfortable than the RG35X. In actuality, this extra bit kind of gets in the way when you're in that kind of position, makes more of your fingers curl, and I'll demonstrate that in a second. Okay, so the overall finish and feel definitely goes to the Miyoo Mini. You could tell that they took more time. Button location, actual finish of the material, the way they finished off the screen with the closer edge to it, and just the smoothness, and I love how the Miyoo Mini feels. So Miyoo Mini gets the points in this category. This segment is all about style, baby. Let's get into it. The FC3000 is going to get 4th place in this category. And although it reminds me of a TurboGrafx 16 controller, I personally do like that. The only difference is in this case, the buttons aren't the best, especially up and down here. Stylizing though, it does have its own unique look, but it's not really that flashy. The back doesn't wow me. There's no really thing that grabs your attention like the others. Although this is more flashy with the red and black, they also make a gray and black that those two look really cool, but it's kind of not as flashy as you would think they are. So me personally, I think this has the weakest style and look to it. The next category in style and look I think is really nice, which is going to get third place in this category, is the RG35X. And the reason why I say this, it did take cues from the traditional Game Boy, which doesn't give it much originality. The originality comes more in the FC3000, but in this case scenario, I like the fact that this reminds you of the original Game Boy. Now, this is where it gets cool points for having this sleek little swoop here, and also returning back in and giving you a nice purchase real estate over here. Now, in the back, they included 3 ridges, and I thought that was a pretty cool cue. No covers for the screws. There's no minus points for that, but if you look here, very smooth on the side, and it has that texture finish. So overall, it just reminds me of a Game Boy, and I think that's the look they were going for. Nice quality parts, but as far as style and overall look, it's like something I've seen in several places. 3 goes to the Miyoo Mini because it does everything the RG35X does in exterior style, except much better. Notice how even the coloring, and I'll bring the RG35X back, even though this one is more true to the original DMG, this one here has that nice beige and tone to give it just a unique look. If you notice in the speaker grill, there's more lines here and less lines here. The location of the start and select button is lower in a way, which gets out of your way when you're doing your action buttons. And also the buttons are not sticking out. The buttons you use the least, which is the menu start select button, they're more recessed here and they are more bumped out here. But when I put these side by side and I look at every side of it, I really love the ridges in the back, and you could tell that the finish here, they have a sticker, here they have screen print right on there, and to me the Miyoo just feels like a much more premium product. So I'm gonna give second place to the Miyoo, and I'm gonna give third place to the RG35X. We're talking about overall style. I think that the SF2000 deserves the coolest position. And the reason why I say that is because we've seen this SNES controller with a screen on it design in several other designs. You're going to see this design more commonly, the Game Boy clone or Game Boy copy more commonly. But I loved how this just got it right. I love the curves in the system. I love the addition of the analog stick. I love how they added bumpers to the top, speakers in the back, and just the overall styling of this I think is unique and looks really cool, especially in the black. So when I'm turning it in different angles, it's really impressive, guys. And the only thing that I would say that would bump this up to a new level is to have a glass screen. You add the glass screen to the SF2000 and now this thing is on another level. So as far as the exterior overall look, I think that the SF2000 is the coolest. This segment is about quality parts. Let's check it out. The FC3000 is going to get fourth place because you can kind of tell, by the flexing of the plastic that this one is not made with the best stuff. It also has a plastic screen and protective cover which is incorporated into the case, which is almost like a sticker that goes on top with some screen print on the bottom. The buttons are really small, but as far as the materials they tried to use, it's literally just the lightest one. And like I said, light is not always bad, especially if you're really traveling with this thing. I think this got the portability down definitely right. But as far as materials, if this gets damaged or stolen, I'm not heartbroken. I'm not missing it because literally with the cost of a Miyoo Mini, I could buy 3 or 4 of these. So quality parts and overall finish, this gets fourth place. Okay, so next up, these could be very close, and what I'm going to say is in this case scenario, the SF2000 is going to get third place in this category. Although between the RG35X and the SF2000, the exterior plastics, buttons are pretty much on the same quality and level. I really like that the SF2000 includes bigger buttons. So with me with bigger hands, I get a better purchase on the action buttons. But one thing that is going to take a minus on finish is, well, fitment is that the D-pad does slightly move and shift left and right, as well as the other buttons. But other than that, as far as the finish, they're on almost the same level, guys, except for the glass screen. So the only thing that separates this to me is the glass screen. So this takes third place in this category. Coming up with this, when I'm comparing the Miyoo Mini and the RG35X, sorry to say it, guys, if I never owned a Miyoo Mini, I would say that this is nice. This is really nice compared to the old Game Boys we used to have. But being that I have this Miyoo Mini, I can actually feel and tell a difference. The chamfering in the corners and edges of the system, the attention to detail on the bezels of the screen. Also, the button placement and the start, select, and menu buttons are recessed in the Miyoo Mini. Also, the travel in the buttons, the D-pad gets out of your way, and I know some people like more of a tactile D-pad, but in my opinion, I like one that just flows into the next movement. So that's where the Miyoo comes in. And also in the back, we have access to our battery. With the Miyoo and the RG35X, we do not. We're not talking about overall features and power in this video. This is only about ergonomics, fit, and finish. So with that being said, Miyoo Mini gets #1 for the fit, finish, and overall quality of parts. Very beautiful screen, very smooth finish, love the coloring. Also like the little different ribs and cues. It's not overdone, it doesn't get in your way, but it also makes this console look great. And I also like the size choice. So the extra real estate really wasn't used the best because everything is scrunched up in the RG35X, whereas in the Miyoo Mini, although it's smaller, they spread the buttons out more. The D-pad here, if you look into it, is more have skinny ends to it. So left, right, up, and down are a little skinnier. On the Miyoo Mini, it's a lot thicker and in a better place. So I figure as far as quality, fit, and finish and parts goes to the Miyoo Mini. The FC3000 is going to get 4th place. FC3000 is not the most ergonomic. It's definitely not made with the best parts. And it's also not the coolest looking system, but it does have one advantage, being that it is the most portable. So, based off the score sheet in this round of the showdown, we can conclude that the RG35X does well, but is not the best in any specific category. So in this round, we're going to give the RG35X an average rating. So we have the SF2000, which wins in 3 categories in this round. First of all, they did a great job of putting the peripherals in one simple location, which beats all the handhelds on the table. Also, the very cool, stylish look of this makes it look like something new with the old, but also blends and makes it its own style, especially with the rounded cues. And here we have the sort of like Famicom look, also with the analog controller. And then you have the nice curves with the dual speakers on the back, and also a good grip for ergonomics. So this wins in 3 categories: the ergonomics, the style and overall look, and also the peripheral location. That brings us in this category, #2. With the Miyoo Mini, it wins at 5 categories, and if you're not looking close, you would think that this console is this console, but in actuality, there are some cues and details for the Miyoo Mini where it beats the rest. Starting with the accessibility. In this console, this was the only one that I literally could take my finger, not a screwdriver, and change out my battery. The thing that came to it was the SF2000, but there is a screw here that keeps you from easily accessing the battery. So it keeps the battery secure, but also giving me the access without any special tools. Comparing the button travel, we did the example where we actually pressed to see how the button travel was on the Miyoo Mini. Now, in my opinion, I love how the menu button and start select buttons get out your way and they're also spread out the most. What I also like is that when you're pressing the D-pad, it literally melts in your finger. So it's almost like there's no resistance, yet there's enough travel back to bring it back into position. So the travel on the buttons, the accessibility of the battery pack, the overall finish and feel. I love the chamfered edges, the attention to detail, the smooth finish, the added color of beige to give it a nice tint. These things all make the console feel much better and give you a much better impression. Also, the embezel of the screen, how the edge of the system just rolls right in, and I really love that. When we're talking about quality parts, from the screen to the plastic, the Miyoo Mini Plus wins this category.
All right, at the end of round one, the scores are as follows. Fourth place coming in for the FC3000 at 13 points. Third place goes to the RG35X at 24 points. And the SF200 is following in second place at 27 points, with the Miyoo Mini coming in at first place with 36 points. If you'd like to look at the score closer, links will be in the description below. Also, I'll leave a blank one there just in case you want to score them for yourself.
That concludes this episode of the Handheld Showdown. Be on the lookout for round two, where these handhelds are going to go head to head on presentation. Which company gives you the best overall presentation of what they sold you? Definitely, if you like what you saw on this channel, hit the like button below. Also, comment and let me know, where do you rank all four of these handhelds as far as their ergonomics fit and finish? If you're new to the channel, definitely subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get more videos like this, and stay tuned for round two coming up next week.